loud as it goes as we waltz into Friday here with Barbie. I think, is she doing a waltz? She's doing something. We're going to find out soon. We're going to talk about it. Welcome back, and a big, massive happy Friday. Artist Journal, August 2nd, 2024, broadcasting from Berlin, Germany. My name's Adrian Pocobelli, and it continues. It continues. The visual arts underground, but for how much longer? For how much longer as we see, exhibitions like Sabato's, the great Sabato, who we've lovingly, covered on this show for, I guess the show is getting very close to the 2-year anniversary. That's going to be in about a week, or I think it's August 12th, interestingly. So for almost 2 years, I think Sabato's, as I was sort of, considering pixel art, Sabato was probably the easiest one with his drawing exercises that I loved. One of the very early artists that I really took to on Object when I was, it was Haiti Rocket. Haiti Rocket's collection. Haiti Rocket's fingerprints are all over this digital art scene. You even see it like a great ROM artist as well. The many, as we just saw, and forgive me, just kind of waltzed out of the shower as well. So again, Haiti Rocket's fingerprints, everywhere, Kurt Hustle Collective, all these things. I don't want to say all roads lead to Haiti Rocket. That would be an overstatement, but it's fun to just say the words. His fingerprints are everywhere. Let's call it this. But this is Sabato, of course. Now, this is from an exhibition at the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City here. A great name for a museum. I'm not sure how long they've been around, but it kind of has it has a nicer ring to it from a, for lack of a better term, credibility point of view than the NFT Museum. Nothing against NFT museums, but Museum of the Moving Image. That sounds like a MoMA of GIFs, among and video and, name your medium that moves. Now, I wonder, can they show JPEGs at the Museum of the Moving Image? Do they make exceptions for that? Kind of an interesting question. Would be a sad limitation if it was only moving images. But, some people are really, like, I was talking to RuneTune in the last space, and the show that they did in Omaha, Nebraska, which was a fascinating space, by the way. It was a quiet summer space, but it was very interesting. I mean, the quick takeaway on that is the responsibility of an artist in how their work is displayed in physical format. It is a whole, it's kind of easy to just kind of stop and go, okay, I made my JPEG, you curators figure it out. And what we kind of discovered, I'd say, through conversation on RuneTune's show was the importance and arguably the responsibility of an artist after the JPEG is sent to whatever curator to actually be in dialogue with them. How is this going to happen? Because it completely changes. It's another artwork. I would actually argue the physical iteration. It is another artwork. It is another experience, whether it's on a massive projector or a Kindle, as RuneTune put my Tempelhof piece, which I can't wait to see. I think he sent a picture a long time ago. I think he's going to send it again. All to say, okay, getting ahead of myself here. But for RuneTune's show, he was saying how important it was for it to be a moving image. They all had to be moving images. So there is, for me, it's all digital art, but it's interesting, isn't it? This idea of it being a kind of category unto itself, making a category based on it being a moving image. For me, it's more about the tools, kind of like we have oil painting, but there's different ways of categorizing, right? I mean, you could have landscape painting, right? You can group by style, impressionism. So all things to be worked out. All to say, my long way of saying Museum of the Moving Image. What a great name for showing works, gifts in a, what you might, for lack of a better term, in a very kind of credible sounding way, right? It sounds like a MoMA of gifts, as I was saying before. So here's the work. I don't want to go too long here. Barbie, $500 a year plus an East Side flat. So it sounds like rent. And as a matter of fact, Sabato just did a space, I think it was with Kika Nikolela, who I think runs Object One. This is a course on Object One, the curated platform that Object puts out, that Object has. Although this is on, but the works still show up on object.com, as you see up there. So as you see here, we look at a lot of Nintendo glitch ROMs, or glitch ROMs, I think we could call it. And so almost every show. And what's interesting is actually how different the style is, and how differently you can basically direct your GIF. As you see here, quite a beautiful situation here. Forgive the hair. I can't help it. And I can't wait just half an hour for the hair to dry. And this isn't, there is no payment in this show at this point, at least. So forgive the technical difficulties here. But what I was getting at here is the different directing of these glitch ROMs. Like we see Silva San 2s, we see Glitchtown Arcade. We see Haiti Rocket definitely has his own style. So it's not like, we see Kiro, among others. I want to try my hand at it. I even bought a cheap computer literally 2 years ago to do it. Haven't got around to it yet, hilariously. And listening to the Object One space with Sabato that Kika, I think, hosted, it was very interesting as far as how Sabato was saying how he takes a very photographic, because of course Sabato, I think, did photography or does photography as a freelancer for newspapers, this sort of thing. Of course, has done a lot of a lot of photography also that has been glitched and everything. So, as he was saying, one of the takeaways of what I heard in the space was bringing a real photographic mindset to the glitch ROM thing. So I think pretty interesting. Now, there are 8 here. They're doing very well. Nothing like your work getting shown. Nothing like social proof. As we were discussing with, I think it was Santiago saying, what happens to an image when all of a sudden it is kind of accepted as an important image? Nothing has changed, but everything has changed, in a sense, to paraphrase what Santiago was saying. We perceive it different once it's in a book, or let's say once it's at the Museum of the Moving Image, and you see it in the market here. I believe these are all open auctions right now. We can take a look, but now going for $333 each. The edition of 10 sold out, now $150 on secondary, and this one here, I think I have all of them here. And this one here just sold out. Here an offer of $45, edition of 10, so doing very well, awesomely. So here's another one, Bodies Traveling Through the Glitch, fail joyfully, and there's a lot to love about these works. The sheer ROM impressionistic view of this figure moving across this thought bubble here. Almost the sheer minimalism. Again, it's this, discussing moving images. Probably my favorite, and what I call a new contrast. Is this moving part of the image and the static. Right here we have what looks like a moving kind of probably Barbie. For lack of a better term, deconstructed Barbie here, moving across this thought bubble. Kind of like more of a haunted house sort of thing, contrasting with this beautiful color. And so, yeah, and then that contrasting this moving Barbie with the still pixels. It creates a weird poetry. I'd argue it's contrast. That is the kind of the mechanism by which we're feeling kind of this, why does this seem so, poetic? Among other things. Another thing is just like this beautiful rendition of this figure here. And then there's the ski lift. And of course, along with Barbie comes all of the massive connotations and societal, cultural, rich, sort of iconic, controversial, probably I'm sure there's been a lot written in universities on what Barbie means in the genders and everything, which is obviously a huge issue today. So bringing all of that to the fore as well with this 1992, I believe, glitches taken from corrupted ROMs of Barbie Supermodel SNES 1992. So quite a cool looking game, and again going with the super minimal. My Dying Town, and this is at auction actually at 333 edition of 1. In this one, My Dying Town, and a lot of people can relate to this. When I go back to Saskatoon, it's not the same city it was, I would argue, when I was a kid. And I've had friends visit me in Berlin from Saskatoon and say, have you been to Saskatoon recently? The downtown is transformed, much, much quieter. Interestingly, everybody's at the big box malls. That it's not even the mall anymore. That's where all the traffic is. It's very, very quiet on the streets, and then you go to the big box malls as you approach them. The traffic and the honking, and so isn't that wild? So My Quiet Town. Poetic work. Let's just quickly look at the auction here. So I believe still open. Only one bid. And 333 Tezos is only $236 for this one of one, but still it's $236, which that's real money for an art piece, right? Especially a digital art piece where there's no shipping, no nothing, probably 90% profit here. So awesome, right? And then you put out 8, that starts to add up, and rent is being made and more. Annihilate Each Decade, another work, 1024 by 896, interesting size. And here it is. So you see, it's not going to all the corner of the screen. So keeping it, interestingly, not magnifying it. And here's another one with this kind of thought bubble, kind of double narrative. It kind of, again, I'm kind of back to the simultaneous narrative of Renaissance paintings, but provided by this kind of comic book, trope or mechanism or technique, and which is usually full of text, of course, in comics, but here, interestingly, and almost, this is where, for all we know, this is an innovation that just the Barbie people that were doing, the people who designed this game, who said, you know what? We don't even want to put text here. Maybe it's too hard. Let's just put another image in, where it can sometimes turn into an accidental innovation, which is quite interesting. I mean, Brian Eno, famous for probably his most famous statement or idea is happy accidents, right? So you wonder, that's, thoughts that pass my head as we see this double beach scene. And what is this? Barbie fantasizing of a different scenario where she's, rollerblading across another with with other people on the beach. Is this her reading her book? Right? Is this Barbie over here, or her friend? Is that Barbie with the B and the star? And then, of course, all these, I think we call them hexadecimals. Not sure what to call those. All these big blocks. These beautiful, chunky digital blocks here. So this is at 345. Have we just got, heck. Okay, so this is actually a different one. So, heck, one-upping, or starting maybe the auction. I'm not sure how English auctions work. Barbie Christ, so another interesting one. And so again, let's just make this full. So a more minimal work. And Sabato was saying he'd been working, and it is minimal until it's not, and then getting eviscerated, almost vaporized, digitally vaporized here. And Sabato was saying, interestingly, for all the people that are interested in making glitch ROMs or just interested in general, Sabato was saying in this space, which I do recommend, it was a great listen, as I was walking to a wonderful Iraqi restaurant here in Berlin Mitte, South, I think. And as Sabato was saying, his technique developed, obviously, But you get better at glitch ROMs. It's not, again, it's not one of these kind of like, oh, you get the special software, you start putting in random code. I mean, I'm sure you do, but there's a real editing process, there's a real selection process. It's kind of like, I imagine, kind of putting a bunch of stuff in, and then there's a real editing process, we might say, similar to AI, which a lot of glitch artists also adopt, right? So interesting. Again, and the name of this actual series, I think, is Easel Engine, sponsored by Tezos and curated by Regina Harsanyi, and it was released exclusively for Object One. And here's another, again, loving the thought bubble idea, Sabato. The end of history will be fun. So again, adding some kind of, whether it's apocalyptic or, who's it, Francis Nukayama? Is it the end of history? Famous book that that falsely predicted that history was ending and wars were ending to a neoliberal order, I believe. Anyways, the end of history will be fun. So again, and interestingly, I mean, with this title and when this game was presented, interesting title from Sabato. Kind of adding to the work in a Magritte-esque kind of way. And here, again, these beautiful glitches here. Kind of really poetic ways of deciding what to keep and what to remove and what works. Probably, again, getting random stuff and going, that's a really beautiful one. Beautiful choices. And, of course, Sabato also having an awesome sense of color. Endgame content. Let's look at this. So, again, playing with the kind of all the focus on Barbie here and this moving figure with this beautifully static audience here. Again, very poetic. These what I call it's a new contrast. One of these new contrasts that come with digital media. The art of becoming. And I'd say almost more characteristic of the second generation of digital art. I mean, we don't see a ton of that static versus dynamic pixels in the first generation. You could even argue, while we're on the topic, one of the distinguishing features, one could argue, thinking out loud here, of the first generation and the second generation of digital art, is the first generation is still concerned and preeminently concerned with making the work physical, right? I would argue, whereas the second generation doesn't feel the need to make things physical. It's okay with it being just on the screen, which I would argue, and I bet you Victor Acevedo would agree with me on this, which is a paradigm shift. Because again, when people are coming out of painting or when the first digital works are being made, there's still this sense that physical is primary. Whereas now, I would argue that's not necessarily the case, and even you could argue digital is primary. And by virtue of that, you're able to get these new contrasts, because now you're completely embracing the medium. Final kind of point on this, with a physical in the first generation, if you're, sure, you get your pen plotter, whatever tool you have, maybe you screen print, inkjet, whatever the case might be, you can't have it move. You can't have one part move and one part not move. So by virtue of embracing the screen as not a secondary media, you are able, again, I'm kind of back to this idea, to embrace and create and celebrate new contrasts, interestingly. So it's always interesting. I never know where things are going to go here, and I love this, the art of becoming. So again, not sure if that's a tip of the hat to Greek philosophy or what, but maybe just philosophy in general. So very cool. 333, Unknown Collector has placed a bid. So very cool. Tezos art, we're going to see in upcoming tabs here, continues to kind of have a bit of a fire underneath that market. Interestingly, it's like people want to secure their grails, interestingly. So a very healthy market, especially considering the state of crypto, which is, I would argue, actually quite bullish right now, but it's not exactly. I think actually we're seeing, again, finally, not to go on too many tangents here, but I think we're starting to see, again, the primacy, other than money transfer, of digital art as a blockchain use case. All of these little coins are getting eviscerated, and what's kind of hot right now? Arguably art on Tezos. And you're seeing big sales on Ethereum, but that's a very small kind of cadre of collectors, I would argue. Whereas, and you could argue the same thing about Tezos art as well, but you get the sense that the value is still there on Tezos if you really want to, by spending 10 ETH, as we're going to see here, you're not necessarily going to make a fortune on your work. Maybe in the future you will. 20 ETH or 30, maybe. But all to say, spending $10, or in the case of, say, Unknown Collector, maybe $250, as far as just like where it could go, that could 10 or 100x. That's not crazy. That goes to $25,000 at one point. Just for the sake of argument. Who knows? Maybe it goes to zero because all this IPFS business, which we're also going to see a tweet from Sabato on. Anyway, this was a great space. It really picks up, I would say, about halfway through, where we start making breakthroughs on the importance of how your work is displayed. And I would argue the innovation or the new territory that this conversation went to for me personally was really hitting home how important it is to really care about how your work is displayed as far as when you send it to a curator or to a show. It kind of brings a whole new level of seriousness to you, I would argue, is what I learned in this space as an artist. When you are thinking, when you want to know and you are almost inputting or collaborating to a certain degree with the curator on how the work is going to be displayed. Because it makes a difference. It completely makes a difference. I mean, Runtune was telling me how, again, I'm not sure if I mentioned this Tempelhof work that I did, he put on an Amazon Kindle because of the Paperwhite. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, Rune, it's almost like you completed the work. And he was like, it was almost like that. And so now I need to dig up that picture again. I think he sent it, it was 6 months ago. But how interesting is that? Again, because I think before this space, I was still in the mindset of, someone's doing a show, yeah, send them the JPEG and forget about it. Now I kind of have a bit more sense that if I'm going to be a serious artist, I say to myself, I need to care how this work is displayed. I can't just be like, oh yeah, however you decide and, put it on the, 16:9 TV and whatever. So interesting space. Let's look at comments here. Love the comments. Awesome to hear. Cider, thanks for featuring me on this episode, Poco. Much love. Cider, it's always an absolute pleasure to hear from you. The great Cider out of Brazil, just an amazing artist in the scene. Ed Marola. Mishi is amazing. I'm super proud of our collabs. So I kind of felt like with the response first of all, I was very happy that people were happy that I started with Mishi Asu, if I'm pronouncing that right. On the show. A lot of people were kind of happy. We're going to see more comments on that. But I kind of felt like the last to know about this artist, and it's kind of interesting, isn't it? But when as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my, this is someone I can't wait to show. We got more works this show, just to add to the fun works to follow. So Ed Marola collaborating. Didn't even know. Eco Textile Studio, nice closing to the show. I believe that was with Hugo Dici and that gorgeous work on Accomp Arts, the computer with the rainbow screen. I assume that's the one you were thinking of, Eco. Good to see you feeling better. Indeed. You know what it was? I believe. Because it was something that went and came back. The sickness that I had, like a sore throat, and that disappeared. Wasn't a typical sort of flu. Had to get antibiotics. And now it's been a day. And now symptoms are disappearing. So it seems pretty clear it was an infection and not a virus, just so you know. So thank you for the notes. Feeling really feeling better today. I almost wonder, finally, this is a journal. I almost was wondering to myself, because I feel so good today, wonder if I had something else in the system. I haven't taken antibiotics for 15 years. Did something else get cleared out of there? Is that why I feel so great? And I was like, maybe you should be taking antibiotics every 2 or 3 years, although some doctors would probably speak completely against that. Anyways, let's continue here. Not doctor advice for sure. Paolo Massi Visual Studio, great find. Asu is genius. This artist here. Yeah, I'm really thrilled. I get very bullish on this scene that other people are agreeing with this curation here. And they're as excited as I am about it. Makes me very bullish on this scene. Sophisticated scene. Sin Pablo, I'll always love the intro song. Really appreciate that. That is the great Tradscape. Just an awesome NFT. One of one I managed to get, and it's part of the deal, as it says in the writing. You can do what you want with this, and yeah, Tradscape, awesome individual, rad pixel artist. Recently came back a bit. I hope I hope Tradscape continues. Just really cool person. Don't take for granted. Okay, so and just finally, the comments on Twitter on X. Soju, I love these videos. Thank you for creating such detailed and fun explorations of the art in our space. You're more than welcome, Soju, and it just thrills me to hear this very much. Jan Lucas Magone, super interesting journals, always discovering new beautiful art. Thanks, Jan, and awesome to hear from you. And I believe, actually, I'm sure we have a work by you, new work by Jan in this episode. Awesome to hear from you. Ile, watching this great episode too late, and we'll have to revisit 3020 thoughts about beauty and nature. Exactly. I'm glad that resonated with you, Ile, because it's a very interesting topic. It was a bit of a breakthrough for me, I guess, when I was in Montreal about 15 years ago. This idea that beauty comes before, like our sense of beauty comes before our moral code, is the idea. That really beauty, we see it aesthetically in beautiful things like physical beauty, but there's also kind of, again, beautiful action. So it shows that beauty is kind of before, very primary. And is that what really makes us human? Ultimately, is that what separates us from being animals? At the end of the day, it's an interesting question. So glad that resonated with you. It's a very interesting discussion. Lily Illo, big love. Awesome to hear from Lily Illo. Of course, we did an awesome space. Actually, Ile just wrote up a big tweet thread on that space. Very interesting space. Great to hear from Lily. Filippo Francocci, great show as always, Poco. Thanks so much for featuring my work. My absolute pleasure. I think we might have another one, Filippo. I believe this episode. Rosetio, I discovered Michi Asu here. I love how weird their art looks. I totally agree. Also, the website, it's something else. Love it. Me too. I mean, it's just, I think someone else wrote this. It's just a breath of fresh air. Like, I love it. Me too. I'm so happy that everybody else, or that a lot of people, it's, resonating with these people who are commenting here. Look at this, Golo. Mishi Asu is one of my favorites. I mean, I feel like the last person to the party here. This is awesome. A real idol. And thanks for props, Poco, and so lovely to see Michi Asu up front too. Asu very much deserved to feel like we're all sleeping on this series. Like, absolutely, totally agree. I mean, I couldn't believe I could buy all those one of ones. The Visual Arts Underground, indeed, but for how much longer? As I open this show, but for how much longer? Awesome to hear from you, August. Nuv, Magic. This is awesome. It is the Visual Arts Underground. If I can start with Michi Asu's work and people are excited about it, I mean, holy, this is a scene I am excited about. This is not, the stereotype of the NFT art scene. This is not what people think when they think of NFT art, right? And seeing Michi Asu, right? Like so isn't that interesting? What's going on here? Little Cakes, so stoked that you're starting the show with Michi Asu. I haven't seen a response like this on any artist, actually. Like, great choice, great choice. As I was saying to her, and I guess Michi Asu is a she, from what I understood from a tweet that Little Cakes put out. Awesome. It was almost a controversial decision. I was like, do I start the newspaper, The Imagination? I was almost tempted to start with Hugo Digi's computer. It's just big, shiny, but I was just like, we need to bring in new. We got to keep this fresh. We got to, love the Hugo Digi. That's why I ended with it. Yeah, it was the editing here. It's great to hear. that people liked. It was not an easy decision. Only in retrospect, it might look that way. So really appreciate that. Great artist, great feature, great video. I enjoyed the watch. Awesome to hear from you, Oyaniyi. I think we'll see you in the community. I lay from minute 29 for me. You're raising important questions regarding goodness and beauty, animal versus human. To challenge us, I would say, is there anything more beautiful than a black kitten in a brown paper bag, or a bee singing with joy in a flower's pollen, or a hummingbird? So I don't know if that challenges, well, beautiful for us, right? Beautiful for us. I'd still say that's the human appreciation of beauty. I don't know if they're seeing it as beautiful, right? So that's, you could argue that is the most evolved part of our species. You could argue, because what other species has a moral code? You do get the sense that there is an understanding, perhaps, with other animals, cats, dogs, of good and bad, but it's super rudimentary, I would argue. And how much is that just programming from humans, right? I don't know. So all to say, and thank you, Flint Pope, for tagging someone. Rosaceo, Spirit of Hen. So this is a huge kind of thing I've kind of avoided it because I felt like that original tweet, I think it was by one of the people that are behind Rodeo. I wasn't sure if it was really just trying to provoke a reaction. It was, to me, it was either one of two things. It was either trying to provoke a reaction, and then I felt like everybody was taking the bait and then kind of promoting whatever they wanted to promote, or it was an unthoughtful thought. And then if it's an unthoughtful thought, well, do we need to discuss this for on and on? So that's kind of back to the editorial side of the way the editor is thinking over here at the newspaper, The Imagination. That is how I'm thinking. So Spirit of Hen. So again, but we're seeing a lot of works here and a lot of commentary and everything. So here is one, is Hen Down, which was a famous time when Hen was taken down. I came about a month later. I was on, I think, December 21st, 2021. Slow to mint there. K-Works, Oyaniyi, Coyote, here. So here's Oyaniyi, again, also known as K-Works. Here's a collection I've been working on. It's called the Simple Things Collection, and it's made up of simple concepts and things that may otherwise be ignored, but they have a huge impact in our lives. Here are a few paintings. So some more work by Oyaniyi. Interesting contrast to colors there, Oyaniyi. I'm always a big fan of kind of like black and white with a little bit of color. Here you go, doing it again. Yeah, it's always quite powerful. These are beautiful digital paintings, Oyaniyi. Thank you for posting this in our community here. And here's very interesting kind of digital artwork here. Great textures here. It looks like a lot of kind of magic wand, my favorite tool. Very powerful tool. Luke 500. This is quite interesting. So speaking of rodeo, 1,258 unique minters, 681 unique creators, and I thought only 3 ETH of creator revenue. So 1,258 mints and 3 ETH, meaning the artists, as of today, earned about $14 on average, which isn't horrible. It's money, so it's not horrible, but it's not necessarily what we're used to. It's not great either for this scene. And here... Luke 500, actually, so if you go to the community, you'll see Luke 500. I mean, there's some nice works, and I got a few more here today. So it goes into the positives and the negatives, and again, it sounds like it's about 30 cents to collect, and then the artist gets half, right? And when you see $14 there, some people are probably making like $200, and some people are probably making like 20 cents, right? So that's also something to be kept in mind. So anyways, cool thread here. Not sure. So it gets split. 50% goes to Rodeo, which is also, I guess, a part of Foundation, and the remaining 50% goes to the artists. From the collector perspective, it's super fun. With $3, you can get 10 different works. Each token carries royalties, but the secondary market is not in scope of the platform as of now. I personally don't think there will be any secondary at all. So we see an Instagram structure here, quite clearly. Adding mints over here. Interestingly, cons, it gets boring very soon and easily, if not for collectors, as my friend Pocobelli mentioned multiple times. Why artists should make a 20,000th of an ETH or 15 cents when they can make at least $1 or on every other chain or platform? Food for thought. This is, I think, that's what they, if they want to fix like the long term, that's the long term problem I think they have. Like, what's the incentive for artists to keep minting there, right? If they have other options that are 10x the amount. I mean, again, if you raise it to $1, like I think Fungible was saying, then it starts to be like, okay, $1, I get 100 mints. Okay, that's cool, right? That's pretty good. That starts to compete with the other platforms, with Object and whatever. Like, you know, you get $100 for your work. You feel pretty good about that. If you can do that a few times a month, wonderful. Thanks to Kalo NFT, and big shout out to Kalo as well as Luke and his newsletter for the invitation code. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I couldn't recommend it more. And here you actually see the usage. Interesting. It actually peaked out pretty early. Let's see what happens here, if it continues going up or if it peaked out. Daily active minters. So this is actually pretty high. The daily active minters is growing. So interesting. And closing, I didn't mention the most important part of the platform, the social part. Only whomever mints a piece can add a comment on it and get in touch with the artist. I do not see this as of great value personally, because Web3 goes way behind that at this stage. So interesting thoughts from Luke 500 here in the community. If you want to read the whole thread, just go to the community, the Bacon channel on my TV. So hilarious David, hilarious name there too. And a reference to Francis Bacon here and the cubes. And here Ilya Zura made a collage out of my photo works. Again, looking like, so almost perhaps a kind of combination. Maybe digital collage out of physical photos, kind of looks like. Very interesting. And, you know, we're going to see some more very interesting kind of, you know, as I like to call it, traveling through the mediums here. Ilya Barbarin, here's another one. New free mint. When I take my good old synthesizer or sampler, I fly away into the world of sounds, and that looks like maybe a Korg, if I had to guess. A Volca? I didn't have that one. So, and that in Rural Idol we saw last time. Okay, let's keep running here. This is interesting. Because, of course, the traditional contemporary art scene, I would argue, is very Instagram-centric. And I've been saying here for actually almost this entire program that we have a bit of a head start here in this scene being on X. Should X outperform? And look at this. X outperforms Facebook and Instagram. This is according to Elon Musk and SimilarWeb here, which is pretty famous, actually, SimilarWeb. According to the traffic monitoring site SimilarWeb, X smashed it out of the ballpark with more visits worldwide than Instagram and Facebook. We had 13 billion views throughout June, compared to Facebook's 12 billion and Instagram's 5.8 billion. We had almost 3 times the number of unique visitors than Facebook. X had 3.1 billion unique visitors. Facebook had 1. Instagram had 919 million unique visitors. Very interesting. Another just kind of general thought here from this kind of famous account, Novell. Something we've been discussing here. Google doesn't provide discovery distribution for new creators, so they've migrated to social. So creators are migrating to social because Google isn't doing anything for you. And it's super interesting. Like, are you using Google anymore? I'm using it less and less, and I'm going to ChatGPT more and more. And I'm even using the audio, and I never use the audio with Siri, with Google. Now with ChatGPT, for whatever reason, I'm using the audio. So I would be like, Google, I think, is probably quaking in their boots, so to speak, is feeling the fear. Because I think they're going to lose search to ChatGPT, which is super interesting. And I think part of the problem is it's too much of a, like, they're not offering enough to the users. This is a mistake that Instagram made very early on, I would argue, and that TikTok figured out. Hey, you know, like early on, Instagram was making people social media stars and things were happening for people that contributed to the platform. But then Zuckerberg took over, strangled the reach, and only after TikTok started growing, because it was then celebrating its creators, that eventually Instagram's starting to realize, oh, this is actually a good thing to push accounts and that celebrate the creators and not strangle them. Another interesting tweet here. A decade ago, I felt like I could find anything on the web. Now I feel like I can barely find anything. People just don't put information on web pages anymore. And this kind of speaks to an earlier statement, which is even before, not everything makes it to the internet. Not everything is uploaded. And now, I mean, again, I'm kind of back to this, like, who visits websites anymore? It's all platforms. Once in a while, you'll go to an artist website. So it's almost like a little pamphlet, whatever. But, are you going there regularly? No, you're going to the platforms. And even, you can even, with ChatGPT, is that even a website anymore? When you have it on your phone, it's like an app that you speak into and it gives you, text back. So just kind of interesting, the transformation of the internet is happening, continues. So now here, we don't have time to go into everything here, and we looked at a lot of this discussion before, but there was a lot of commentary on it, with Runetoon also chiming in about this idea of what art is. But I thought Santiago kind of highlighted one of the big things that another kind of important takeaway, back to almost Eile's point on beauty in nature and the bees, and me saying, oh, well, it's the humans that are appreciating the beauty of a bee and nature and birds and all this sort of thing. Santiago, I am after that danger. I've studied and wondered, and you should be able to see that in my work. And I love this, and I completely agree. Artists have to ask questions, is my opinion. Indeed, and I remember in art school actually saying, my paintings are questions. So they are investigations of sorts. Completely agree with Santiago's philosophy here. Now, here is the part, though, that we're discussing as far as the nature of art. About the nature of reality and the nature of art, I don't think there's an art per se, like an entity that pre-exists culture. And indeed, and there's a couple of things you could say here. In a sense, you could say art is culture to a certain degree. It's a form of culture, right? I always like to go back to the cave painters, we could call that the beginnings of kind of culture. It's pre-writing, interestingly. It's like just visual mimesis, copying of what we've seen, maybe trying to invoke the buffalo or the bison in the hunt. And interestingly, and I think the way I interpret what Santiago is saying here, I don't think there's an art per se, like an entity that pre-exists culture. Like, in a sense, there is almost, the way I kind of interpret this is there is no art outside of the human imagination, right? It's not something that kind of exists on its own. It kind of requires the human mind, so to speak. It does bring up an interesting, kind of profound philosophical discussion, which is the existence of invisible realities. And for example, we could say beauty, but here's an easy one. And again, this is just kind of Platonism 101 to a certain degree. It's sort of like ideas of morality. Like justice would be your classic kind of Platonic example. Where's justice as far as like a thing that exists outside of the human experience and mind? Like, is there a thing outside of the human mind that we could call justice? Pretty debatable and kind of, you'd say unlikely. You could say, well, there's maybe a universal balance, divine justice of sorts, right? The universe, who is it? Is it Anaximander? Right, early pre-Socratic, that there is kind of like these forces and they do kind of balance out, and we could call this a kind of justice. But that's a bit of to the point, though, that bringing it all back home, justice, generally speaking, we might call an example of something that is real but invisible, not immaterial, incorporeal, right? And so art is in that land, I would argue. It's beauty, the appreciation of beauty. We're kind of back to morality and how it relates to art and aesthetics. The beauty is the kind of, behind those two is beauty, right? So beauty is the discussion here, our appreciation of beauty. And these are different kind of manifestations or facets. So in a sense, art and the exploration of aesthetics is very much, one could argue, an exploration of our own, of human nature, of what it is to be human. And maybe that's not accidental then, that humanism is completely associated with the arts, right? So I think just a cool kind of comment there from Santiago that we can riff off of here. Tukes, choosing to be an artist is choosing the hardest path. I've achieved more as an artist than you could ever imagine. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to live and eat tomorrow. And of course, Tukes has been making art seriously since at least 2012, being a thing on the internet. A real internet artist, as I like to call them. That's why you don't choose to be an artist. You're born one. And I think this is generally true. I think I definitely would relate to that. I've kind of always wanted that, to be an artist, and just like whatever that means. I think people can choose to be an artist, though, is what I would say, though. That all being said, I think people can decide, life-changing. Maybe you go to war and you come back and you decide, you know what I was doing was not very meaningful before, and now I want to do something with whatever time I have left and live as kind of meaningfully as I can. So I do believe people are, to a certain degree, born artists, but I do think people can choose to be them. That's why artists, I think we've seen that actually in the scene. People who kind of come here as collectors and all of a sudden they're making art, right? I think that's kind of a choosing. And maybe we have musicians. Look at Capin. He was a musician and then kind of came to this scene, and all of a sudden he's like one of the greats, I would argue, of the scene. We got a great work by Capin. So not sure if you can't choose. I think it's both, actually. Some people are kind of born with that mission, and other people, I think, can choose. That's why artists do many other things for a living. They often suffer their whole lives, and ain't that the truth? And another reason to not take for granted getting paid for your art, as I named the last show. Now, speaking of getting paid for your art, check this out, Ripcash. So selling this work here, this very large pixel art work, I wonder if Ripcash is taking advantage of low fees on Bitcoin. And this probably costs a few bucks to mint. I mean, it's black and white. It is, I think it's 1024 by 1024. Again, this is probably like a 10 kilobyte file, maybe 100 max. I don't think it's 100 kilobytes. You know what I mean? Probably costed like 20 bucks to mint, if I had to guess. Justice is the Genesis inscription in my new Hyperscalers Ordinals collection. It's a wonderful time to get on Ordinals and represent a series of significant firsts in my artistic practice. So first true one of one on Bitcoin in my signature style, the first of 24. So kind of combining a composition that unites all of my past and present subject matter, the surveillance cameras, the drones, and even a little rat here. And so very cool. So selling it for an absolute fortune here, 2.6 Bitcoin. So what is that? 65, let's call it, times 2.5. I mean, $200,000. Not bad. Not bad. It's a great business, digital art, if you're wondering. Like, if you can break through here. Art of the Millennium, after the ethanol stopped burning by Die With The Most Likes, sold for 10 ETH. So about $35,000. So a lot of Die With The Most Likes work, we looked at this work earlier, it's kind of flying off the charts or off the shelves. I think, Vincent Van Gogh did some pretty big purchases, which I think kind of lit a fire under the market. Let's see if it sustains. I'm always like, yeah, let's see if it sustains for all, and I mean just in general, not just Die With The Most Likes. Sonso, the sale of Open the Floodgates by Joe Pease. I mean, because we're seeing massive sales. We see the Rip Cash. We see the Die With The Most Likes. We see here Joe Pease. My question here when I see these massive sales is this just like a handful of collectors that are deciding, okay, let's just like buy a whole bunch of stuff. Can we light a fire? There almost is a sense of they're kind of collectively thinking without even needing to discuss with each other, like, can we light a fire under this market? I don't know. Again, shows that. So here, sold for 34 ETH, $113,000, originally bought in 2022 for 50 ETH, but $61,000. So shows that in most cases, art will not outperform ETH. And then actually Vincent Van Gogh commented, so sonso.eth, I think a pretty prominent Ethereum account. For what it's worth, this piece could have fetched way more if it was actually listed on a marketplace and promoted. Was kind of a fire sale from a fund who doesn't seem to know what they're doing. So interesting. So saying, it actually sold for too little at $113,000, even though it doubled in fiat terms but Sanso arguing, oh, it would have been better to just stay in ETH, I guess. This is also interesting, and Object takes like a surprising amount of flack for their, I think, perfect website. This gives us everything we need here. Here you have Sabato's drop, daily curation, top referrals. Like, it's a very useful homepage. Trending collections. I guess this is what I would want to design. Like, this is how I would, if you said, Pocobelli, what should we change? I'd be like, I don't think I'd change anything here. I can go to top sales and look at this. And even just scrolling through, super easy. So die with the most likes 5 hours ago, 5,000 Tezos. So a lot of die with the most likes, 500 Tezos. An early hen work, the Lucrece, 300 Tezos. Morpho, 300 Tezos. Eddie Lee, 250. And so there's a Lorna Mills, 200. Pretty good for addition of 10. And Von Doyle, I think we looked at this one, 220. So pretty interesting, but you see die with the most likes there with more big sales. There's Tukes, awesome, 150 Tezos. And Sonic, old hen, so old Tezos, OG, original gangster stuffs are grails. So people getting excited, interestingly, of old Tezos works that were on the Hen platform, also known as Hic et Nunc, for those that are unaware. Lulux, most of the Hen, Hic et Nunc veterans and OGs know and feel the big wave that is coming for the NFTs minted there. We know the quality and values of the art. We tested and used this chain for years. We know it's cheap and reliable. It's just a matter of time now. So people getting bullish on Tezos. And just back to this Spirit of Hen thing, we don't have time to read Sabato's entire thread here. I do recommend you read it, but ultimately, if I was to summarize it, as he says here in the first line, it is the economics that really, that digital artists from anywhere in the world could suddenly make a living selling their art without having to sign up to a walled garden influencer club. So it was open, and you could start making and selling your art, which is why, again, I think we're seeing, especially in the global south, a real where, $3, goes further than it might in, Paris, right? Or New York. So basically, and that it was and also he mentions that it was a credible platform that was open. And in a sense, I'd argue Object has basically taken the mantle. Although maybe some people would disagree. But basically that's where things seem to move to, as well as, of course, Tea, but, maybe not as used as, say, Object. But all to say, you can start selling your art in a credible platform, in a credible way, and it wasn't gated. This is super interesting, too, just on the whole money-making situation. Zuozo, new Zuozo, 666 minted. This is for real. Sabato, is this a copy minter? No, it's me. I just realized I hit 666 mints. I mean, that's $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 as far as I understand. Again, it's been a while since I've minted on Zora. Maybe I'll do that right away just to see. But Zuozo making a fortune on that work. NFT Biker. So has very important tools here. If you are looking for ways to collect and, different ways of doing things, check out NFT Biker's website here, nftbiker.xyz. Also, we can't go into this, but, the whole IPFS and this idea of pinning the JPEG in this paid-for cloud, so to speak, that, as we saw with Known Origin, if you shut down, and we're going to keep paying the fees for 2 years, but then after that, you're on your own, so you have to back it up yourself. Real point of failure, I would argue, risky point of failure as far as the whole NFT technology. Pinning services are cool, but did you know you can pin your NFT collection to IPFS yourself? It's also a great way to save your digital collection on local media as well. Check out Regina's tutorial in the thread. So I wonder if that's the curator. I'm not sure of the Barbie show. So you want to learn how to run an IPFS node and locally pin files under 32 gigabytes under the IPFS desktop GUI. It's actually very simple. So there you go. Interesting, with this whole IPFS thing. I hope it kind of gets sorted out in a more kind of, I just hope it gets more sorted out, more developed, this whole side of things. Element Lee, digitization of my 2010 sketch. Again, traveling through the mediums. So a sketch, a drawing that has become digitized. Very, very interesting. This is also interesting. Kyle Flemmer, so you see, okay, cool. Nice glitch of a Mickey Mouse and Minnie, maybe a devil in the background. And then look at this, right? So this is what I'm talking about. When you can do like a billion different iterations of your work, because then, okay, it looks like this is taking the same source that this came from, or maybe that this is the source, and then it turns into this. Another thing you could do is you could take this and then put it into kind of, some sort of process. So you see how many different versions of a work you can have? So anyways, I've gone long here again. I need to just cut these news things in half. Ivan Hugo, super interesting from Kyle Flemmer though. Ivan Hugo, I don't know how to use the internet. So look at this. This looks like a virtual studio, doesn't it? And quite interesting. Like kind of a pretty interesting painting that's being made here in, I guess we'd call it virtual reality or in the metaverse, whatever you want to call it. Weirdly persuasive. This is the most persuasive I've ever seen. It's not like the Google thing that was three-dimensional, right? Like to me, this is like, oh, you're painting a real thing, but in, digitally, and looking quite convincing. That to me was very interesting. Heck, experimenting with robots thanks to some inspiration from Threshold and Ken Consumer E. Big shout out to Ken Consumer here in Berlin. I need to go visit Ken Consumer at his bar in Neukölln. So interesting. Again, you see the difference here in traveling through the mediums. It's a different artwork when you physicalize it. And that in itself is interesting and powerful. And you could argue the physical there has more poetry than just like this quick thing, arguably. This is the thing. And I was doing this with artworks that, let's say I had the colors that I was mentioning this story earlier, kind of garish colors, not worrying about it, because then I'd know at a certain point, this was years ago, I could put it into the Instagram filter and it would harmonize everything. And then I'd get all these unpredictable outcomes. You could argue the same thing is going on here. It's like, here, I'll make some scribbles and, maybe it's more than scribbles. I don't know. And then, but I'll put it into this thing and all of a sudden it turns into poetic looking work, right? So isn't that interesting? This is also super interesting, and this is really, Hermipe Pixel Art is getting me very excited to visit my friends, or the people at Rizo 3000 here in Berlin to get some Rizo prints made. This is exciting. Look at how beautiful this is. And here, just an update on Elo Code, who is at 36,000 followers now, 35.9. Look at this, 50,000 likes. Right, so back to the idea that Instagram is, but here 164, 152. It's like if you really just kind of nail the algorithm, like you really go far. And what's interesting too is I'm not sure if Code is minting that much on Object right now, but maybe this is a bigger business at this point with 36,000 followers. Just prints. I'll send you a print. Very interesting. All happening within a few months. Jan Lucas Migone. So here, a how-to video, animated GIF loop, frame by frame, freehand digital oil painting, rotoscoping, pixel art details. So let's see if we can get this working. Hopefully our internet is working. Let me try this again. And here we are. Okay, so just a little bit behind the scenes with Jan Lucas Migone doing some digital oil painting. Look at this. Wow. This looks like Photoshop here, if I had to guess. There it is. So using the work in progress video as a way to do kind of as an ad of sorts, which is brilliant. Here it is available. 8 are available at 15 Tezos. Pingo de Fuego, special artwork. And this is minted on Tea, interestingly. I'm seeing more mints on Tea right now. It's kind of interesting if Tea will kind of, as Hen artworks get more popular, and Tea being the modern version of Hen, after Hen shut down kind of, surprisingly at one point, will Tea get more popular if old Hen grails get more popular? I wonder about that. Look at this genius work by Nuv 1914. this transform tool, keeping the transform. Nice move. Aesthetically very exciting and challenging down here. Interesting juxtaposition. Rather than just doing two, there's almost like three things that are being juxtaposed. And here you have this beautiful, it's just like a stroke on the pen, but it looks like fluorescent lighting with another, plant here. Flores and Maqueda, edition of 2, sold out at 12 Tezos each for Syndrome, picking up one, and Klaus picking up the other. Here's an edition of 2 as well by called Ave 1, and again, you have a similar dynamic here. Just super interesting artwork. Again, these wild decisions made on the frontiers, but as well as just like the figure made of these interesting patterns, the weird juxtaposition, and I use weird in a loving way. It's beautiful, and the great color and these gradients. This is what happens when you make a ton of work. Oso's Panda. So also playing interestingly with digital painting here. With these textures, kind of reminds me of the paintbrush from Wasteman Goldminovich, probably similar software. And again, these lines, which we've seen before, and then just almost like this gradient tree. Super interesting work. This is 20 Tezos edition of 1. And here's Las Casas. I guess that's home. And a similar dynamic. It's like a picture, a painting of a painting, a digital artwork of a painting, and the painting in the picture has texture. Very fun, very smart. I think that means home, edition of 1. And here, just to top it off, of 1914 again, Labyrinth, Labyrinto Uno, I think is what you'd say. Very, very bold aesthetic decisions here. There's a lot more going in, like a true abstract, digital abstract here. Like, to state the obvious, but like a very interesting digital abstract here. Edition of 1, sold for 15 Tezos. And here, of course, Mishi Asu in a mud. And I think I picked up one of the new ones. I'm not sure. So again, just radical artwork here. Putting out, I think, 3 stills. Almost looks like there's like resin on top of it. There seems to be depth here. In the current of the times. So another work, kind of looking like a figure here in the middle. And again, these kind of wild colors here. And in the sky, kind of looks like another figure, maybe. This sold for also 10 Tezos. And here's another one. This went to Amelia Versace in a jungle. I don't think I did actually pick up a new one. I picked up 4, though, after I missed the first one to Legojo, or to Lejo X, I should say. Sorry about that. So anyway, another piece here as we break the 1 hour mark. Outrageous. Here's Zozo, picked up by First Syndrome. So First Syndrome doing a lot of collecting here. Beautiful butterflies. So more animals, or insects. In this case, Tropicalia, cool title, from Zozo, selling for 35. Nice sale. And here, I think this is new. I'm not sure. This was Yuri. I only have this for today, so not sure if it's new or not, but another just really interesting work. Look at the drawers here. But then there's the little house. Just more super interesting work here from the inimitable Yuri J. Just very, very cool. Here's PP Universal, Yosendo Ude Bellingham. So I assume that's a famous artist, big piece here. And playing with a few different, again, almost playing with outlines and putting patterning in, but kind of a simpler patterning, we might say. And then here you have, and different textures, and here you have a little bit of painting inside. And interesting, and a different, almost dithering in the tie. So playing again with different textures, contrasting, and even this interesting kind of margin at the bottom there. 6 Tezos edition of 5. And also Pamela Chirone, still putting out new work, which is awesome. DAKC. So very interesting kind of experiments here. I am a huge fan of Pamela Chirone and the energy of the work. You see it here. Edition of 1 for 25 Tezos at auction. And a collaboration between Katerina Create and Pamela Chirone here. Edition of 1 for 50 Tezos. So cool collab here between the two artists. And yeah, Kat and Pam. Awesome. Kind of looks like a big apple or strawberry there. Little fly. Very cool. Here's Badala again in the Wild number 6. Digital collage and drawing based on my old NFTs. Interesting. So very cool digital collage here from Bedala is we kind of bring Bedala in, this artist that I've been looking at for a very long time, showed in some early shows, I'm pretty sure, and now seen again in my feed, Mumbleboy. This is owned by One of One, Donuts Mind. And shout out to both Mumbleboy and One of One, Tim at One of One, and both people at One of One. So again, playing with collage here, mixing digital elements, kind of digital collage, I guess we could call it. Pretty big file. Is this Evelyn O, who of course I follow? That is Twitter. This is really cool. So interesting abstract here from Evelyn O, posted on X. Very interesting kind of textures and mark making. Not sure if we saw this one. We may have before. This really pretty one by Braun Nami. This is on Rodeo. You know, something I was trying to figure it out, right? Like, what's the date on this? There's no date in the details as well. So they could add the date here as far as just the activity. So you see, you know, I guess here, yeah, because you also don't see, I guess here you get first minter, but there's no date. Interestingly, beautiful piece by Braun, and here's Walk, coughing. So continuing to put out at least one work a day, but usually I think more. So a digital artwork. This is at one Tezos only. If you get lucky, you might be able to pick up a Walk for a pretty reasonable price. Here's Uxine, especially in the summer. Just a cool work posted by Uxine. A cool skull. Gotta love the molecule, the kind of the overlay. I think we'd call that something I've remember doing actually a long time ago when I was doing Photoshop in 2000. Anyway, it's just very cool over the brain and cool, interesting kind of lines here and nice kind of crypto art animation. Here's Françoise Gamma doing a Olympic type work here. Very cool on Rodeo. And so here, very nice new piece. I think it's new. From 117 minted. That's pretty good. From Françoise Gamma. Nice Olympic piece. And here's Cap'n, also known as Figments, Revelations of Elglitch. So kind of looking computer gamey here with this portal and this beautiful sun. Again, we were talking about the static and the dynamic pixels, new contrasts, and this beautiful fire, which I feel like we've seen done in different works. Beautiful color scheme. And then again, this kind of anima figure, this soul figure, and a little dog and the, you know, companion here. And even just this little circular thing in the middle, just super interesting. Almost looks like gen art there, generative art, but I assume it's just software. It's probably GIMP, I assume. Here's Mac, was just a cool, of course I follow Mac, was just a cool green and black work here, playing with a little bit of shadow as well. Interesting, again, using kind of the Ultima tile set, or variation, let's say, on the tile set, seemingly influenced from Ultima. Strolls through the Pixelverse. This is Stippen Pixel, who we don't see enough from, or at least I don't. Just an awesome artist, 340. So it looks like this is, I don't know if this is a game that Stippen has made, or a remix. Goes for 340, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Very interesting. 38 minted. This is on Zora. Link to play, so you can actually play it. Very interesting. Here's Silva Santus on Zora, racing game here. And interestingly, just another kind of take. You see how much is possible with the glitch ROMs here. Just kind of taking the canvas and just kind of hexing it out a little bit here. Very interesting take on the racing game. From Silva Santus, that's on Zora. Here's Green Ginger. Let's see if we can get some Rail Trip. Really nice piece here. Again, not uncommon to hear the 8-bit music. Not uncommon at all. 384 frame loop. Amazing. Addition of 25 for 5 Tezos. Here's Hermit Pixel Art, who we saw the Rizo print from. This is on Instagram. And I think this is Japanese, not sure. Could be Korean, I'm not sure. So just interesting pixel artists there on Instagram. Dan Anthony Kelly, Public Transient number 25. You know what's interesting? Like, when people ask me what I'm doing right now, I'm kind of like, it's a lot of pixel art right now. in Sabato's space, it's like, what are you doing? Doing a lot of pixel art right now. And I wonder if pixel art is going to have a like kind of a moment is almost what I'm starting to wonder to myself. But who knows? Public Transient number 25. Dan Anthony Kelly. So we saw Dan Anthony Kelly in Michi Asu's feed. And of course, I think we've seen it once posted in the community. So a new one, edition of 1, 5 Tezos at auction, getting a few bids. There's Bridget, New York City. Very smart collector there. Mark Travai got a light. So I believe Lorna Mills picked one of these up and posted it. There's Sabato, Cap'n. So interesting. Edition of 100 for 50 cents. So again, kind of pixel artwork, very kind of simple idea, just a lamp hanging. Pretty cool, pretty popular. Maybe I'll pick one of these up, 50 cents. Old Toby. You know where I discovered this? So here's something kind of different, right? Pretty cool, right? Kind of like pixel art abstract. I discovered it on Object's homepage, which I don't visit enough, actually. I was down here, latest mints. I mean, this is like really, really, I would argue, again, for all the, I found it like right here, like, before I started this show. And I was just like, wow, that's cool. So just more cool stuff, cool features. This is Klaus on Rodeo. Oh, this is beautiful. GM, of course, good morning. Look at that. Beautifully textured here. Look at Klaus. It's almost like after doing the 250 some one of ones, it's like then Klaus comes back and then just starts doing other stuff, and all of a sudden it's like the magic pen here, or the magic, like this is amazing. This is beautiful. How many? Only 19 minted so far. Let's see. Danielle King actually commenting, love this, getting old school MTV vibes, like beautifully textured. And of course, composition 253 from July 31st, sold, continuing to sell, and continuing to keep it original here from Klaus. Very nice piece, beautiful colors as usual, almost inimitable colors here. Here's Ex Mortal. This is an edition of 13, now 1888 on secondary, I believe, so more nature. These are really cool works. They're very popular too, selling out at $666. And beautiful work here. Love this piece by Kuro. Super poetic, video painted, as we like to call them here. Just kind of glitched out. Just very, very nice abstract, animated abstract. Auction starting at 0.02 ETH, untitled. Here's Lemonade, also by Kuro. So putting out some very interesting works here. Would fit I think a 16 by 9 screen pretty well, interestingly. 4 minted so far. And here's DJ Kuro on Object. So multi-chain here. On base, on here on Tezos, and on Foundation. I think it was probably ETH, I'm assuming that this was. Oh no, it's on base. Okay, so 2 on base and 1 on Tezos. Grotesque. So very interesting shapes and textures here from Kuro. This is 10 Tezos, edition of 1. Pretty reasonable. And here's one more, and this is on Zora. So I love it. I love just going on, and 15 minted, July 31st. So, I mean, you start spreading work across all these platforms. You could probably put one on Solana too. I mean, it gets interesting from a financial point of view, if you ask me. Like, you start bringing in, like, it's pretty cool and beautiful works. This beautiful gray abstract here. Acid Boy GM. So we're starting to see more experiments from Acid Boy here playing, and I feel like we've seen the colored version of this with the dots on top using this structure. Here's Feels, prominent animated abstract artist, for lack of a better term. Great colors in this one. Very cool piece. 10,000 views, 136 tweets. If it wasn't election season, this would probably be doing like 100,000. Feels. Here's Tukes also. The Drip collection still has 31 pieces available. This is my first collection exploring AI videos. Check it out in the link below. So AI video, abstract AI video. So interesting novel imagery from Tukes. And here it's on Foundation, the Drip. And as we go into AI, here's Santiago. Gates of the last memory ever erased by the salt of the sea turned buildings of meaning. So I believe it is AI. So it looks like a drawing, but it is AI with a little bit of watercolor. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Art AI. Here's Eiley with some cats here. Meow paper bag number 7. Very poetic, beautiful composition here from Eiley and AI. Just awesome. Beautiful work here. And who doesn't love cats in paper bags? Awesome idea for a series. And here's Lily Illo with a fantastic work I've never seen before. I think When It Fumes is what Lily writes. This is a gorgeous piece. The color, the composition, all of it is just beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Tukes with another beautiful work here. One of these kind of wild landscapes here. As we hit the hour 15, and here's Skull Takes actually on Zora with some cool skulls here. As you see, and looking like AI skulls here and a whole bunch piled together, what looks like on top of people. On top of a photo of people with a very kind of faded looking photo. 0 minted so far. You might get lucky with a low edition there. Parsa Mostagim, Bride 1. So this is CGI. Pretty wild, isn't it? Pretty cool. This is on Instagram, 5400 by 6750. Look at that. Just really interesting work here. So you see the work in progress a little bit. Pretty wild. Let's continue. Here's a machine with some Olympic works. Apidos, not sure, or Adidas, but maybe with the D upside down. Not sure here. Awesome painting. I mean, I don't know what's in the water there. Maybe that's the hilarious part here. That's the laughing, but awesome painting. Same here. Just continuing to, when you just paint continuously, you get really darn good. Kind of looks like airbrush, and again, kind of the, trademark kind of hard contours and airbrush. So cool work from Machine. This is an older work from ADAD, who of course I follow, Apocrypha. So this sold on secondary, but nice piece. This is an older work, I think, from 2022. It looks like a physical sold as an NFT. Nice piece from ADAD. Here's Demon Ego. Accidents you hope to encounter but try to forget. So beautiful color on this. And again, using the notebook here as the, basically as the canvas of sorts. Very, very nice piece here. The color is gorgeous. Nice use of white, or negative space, shall we say. Really just beautiful in the black and the color, all of it. Edition of 6, 15 Tezos, just listed. And here's Moto 583. Wild work. Do we have the other one? We only have one. Awesome artist. And that's your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me again as I struggle to keep these short, but I hope you're enjoying them, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, take care.